I remember being so super excited about it when it came out that I kept longingly staring at the box art until I could convince my parents to buy me a copy. Even that, I used to carry the CD sleeve around with me just to stare at the monsters and weapons in the small instruction manual. I would play for hours on end, never getting tired of the soundtrack, the pixels, the enemies, really none of it. Granted, I had played Doom before this, which, yes, was good, but this second title from id was superior. Not just graphically, but they really nailed down what one of the best, if not the best, shooter experiences should be. I could sing this game's praises till the cows come home, and in fact, I've said before that if I had to be locked in a room with only one game to play for the rest of time, this would be it. Then, not too long after that, I discovered the amazing Quake modding scene. Keep in mind, though, that it was a bit different back then, having to know how to add the mods properly in DOS and get them running right, making sure they weren't going to mess up your installation, and all of that sort of stuff. File paths and names, and checking for viruses, which there were a lot back then, and just ugh. Once you're able to get past that, though, the world really opened up to some amazing mods at the start. Well, my 14-year-old brain thought they were amazing. At the time, they weren't massive new levels or total conversions or anything like that, mostly weapon packs or weapon reskins and the like. I can remember one of the first ones I played was a mod called Future vs. Fantasy, which I thought was really cool. I messed around with a few of them, but never really found anything that sucked me in like the vanilla game did. Nothing made me feel the way I do about some of the stuff to come from the community in the past few years, which has had a lot of time with this engine and what it can do, which always results in a better product. Same thing can go for consoles. I thought the best Xbox 360 games to come out did so at the end of its lifespan. Cut to some years later, after I had reacquainted myself with the game, after spending a lot of my younger years playing things like Halo, Silent Hill, Need for Speed, and other console titles. Also, by that time, my tastes had changed quite a bit, and my standards were also different. I found myself wanting replay value and something that wasn't over in a paltry few hours. I wanted something that obviously had been done by someone who loved what they did and were passionate about it, not just something that had been thrown together in an afternoon for someone just looking for, lulz clicks. Once I got back into the world of PC gaming, I spent a lot of time with two of my favorite old school shooters like Doom and, of course, Quake. I also rediscovered the joys of what was a pretty different modding scene. I found a video on one of my random YouTube searches showing off a pretty hefty graphical update for the game called Dark Places, which really blew my hair back. This was the first time I had ever heard of a source port adding better functionality for modern systems, shinier graphics, and the ability to use a modern control scheme. This is what you're seeing footage of now. Quake running on the Dark Places source port with Rigel's Ultra textures. This combination really adds to the game and certainly makes it feel like it was released maybe 10 years ago as opposed to 20. I honestly never get tired of looking at the game like this, so for something to come along and really pique my interest is certainly worth taking a look at. Now, I've never been really enthralled by mods that just add a new weapon or a single new map or tiny tweaks here and there. I'm more of a person that likes pretty significant graphics updates, whole new episodes, and really adds quite a bit of replay value to the game. What I'm here to talk about today and give my thoughts on is all of these things and then some. This grabbed me and sucked me in like nothing I've played in a very long time. I sat down to record gameplay for this video and looked at the time, and after a while I had apparently been playing for over 3 hours. Now that, my friends, is an accomplishment. This particular mod, if you want to call it that, is called Arcane Dimensions, and let me tell you, this is more than just a little mechanics tweak, a single map, or a couple of additional guns. This brings together an entire group of modders and their ideas, which result in something that could be considered a proper sequel to the game on which it's inspired. In fact, if you were to mash together this mod and Quake 1.5, I would buy that as a sequel in a heartbeat, but more on that later. This mod has not one but two hub areas, which breaks the experience into two different parts. The first hub area being the original release, and the second one being added with the 1.5 update, which is not related to Quake 1.5. It's a bit of a misnomer. That'll be a separate video. In each of the hub areas, you can still select the difficulty of each run, but instead of choosing a hallway, you simply touch the corresponding pedestal. There's also a nightmare difficulty as well, which is a bit tricky to find. I stumbled across it by pure accident simply due to the fact, I'm not a sadist. Which brings me on to the difficulty of this game, and yes, I'm going to refer to this as a game from here on out, because calling it just a mod seems wrong. Anyhow, this game is hard even by old school FPS standards. Even on the easy setting, this will definitely make you question your priorities in life, as you will die a lot. This is something I thought about after my 10th death and critical error, but I soldiered on because I wanted to see what was around the next corner or what surprises and secrets I would find next. That's actually one of the best parts of this experience. It just keeps you wanting to move forward and do as much exploring as possible, which is something I haven't experienced since playing the vanilla game. Enemies will swarm you, ambush you, and they do it in some sneaky ways, too. I've experienced grunts bursting from secret doors, walls dropping to reveal death knights, and at one point I was even caught off guard by a shambler busting through a door that would have looked at home in Jurassic Park. Granted, a satanic, abandoned, and haunted Jurassic Park, but you get my point. There are even some boss fights, which is always a plus in my book. This game also adds a few new enemies to help spice things up. Granted, some of these may be from Hexen 2 or even the expansion packs or other mods, but because I haven't seen them before, that makes them new to me, and after all, these are my personal opinions, so there you go. Other additions besides the bigger, better baddies come in the form of 3 new weapons. The Shadow Axe, which can jib zombies, and yes, that's jib, not gib, as John Romero did confirm, jib like giblets. Has a cool glow, and the weapon model, minus the glowing bit, replaces the old axe as the player's base weapon option, as well as the Widowmaker, which is a 3-barrel version of the shotgun. Now, anyone who says more isn't always better needs to try this baby out. Granted, it does consume 3 shells per shot, but it's worth it to see a close-range Widowmaker shot turn a Death Knight into a bunch of chunky kibbles. Rounding this list off is the Plasma Gun, which feels a lot like the guns that the Enforcers from the vanilla game use, but blue blasts and a bit more splash damage. Aside from new weapons, the biggest vanilla weapon tweak is turning the shotgun rounds into more of a projectile-based weapon instead of hit scan, which makes it a way more viable option in combat, especially at range. This is a good thing, as between the plain Jane shotgun, the Widowmaker, and the abundance of ammo in these maps, which can respawn, by the way, it's much more plausible to use these workhorses to plow through a lot in this game. Which, as I've said before, there is a lot on offer here, with really awesome locations, like the top of the inside of a mountain, a snowy mountaintop with floaty islands, old cribs, haunted villages, sketchy-looking military bases, these old wind tunnels. And there's also awesome names, too, like the Place of Many Deaths, Critical Error, which made me think there was something wrong with my game at first, if you look at the way that it's spelled out, Obsessive Brick Disorder, however you say that one, and, of course, the real party piece here, the Forgotten Sepulchre. This map here really steals the show. It took me just about an hour to finish, and I missed a lot of the stuff. This game really encourages you to explore and take your time. It even gives you destructible doors, bookshelves, and windows to peek your head into. All in all, this really does have it all. If you take this experience, add in the weapon models from Quake 1.5, and made a new HUD, this would hands down be a no-brainer for me to play as the proper sequel to Quake, because I honestly have my own hang-ups about Quake 2 and what it should have been versus what it is, but I'll save that for another separate video. Until then, I have included a link for the download in the description. I should mention before I go that this is designed to work with the Quake Spasm engine, so keep that in mind. I tried to play it in dark places, but it doesn't work as it should. I also couldn't play the Forgotten Sepulchre this way either, so I really don't recommend going this route. It's easy to install and get working if you follow the easy-to-follow guide there on the main download page. Now, stop watching and go play this. Like, now.